Hi, I'm Kyle, and on this episode of the MWA podcast, Brian, Jeff, and I are asking David Lancaster the 5 questions. And if you haven't already, be sure to check out David's interview on episode 596. So welcome back to the show, David.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
Yeah. Well, before we get started, let's dip our toes in the woodworking news. So, Jeff, I think you got some news you came across right before we got started.
Yeah, a good friend of the show, Jacob Goodman. He was on episode last summer. He's in the Smithsonian. The Smithsonian's having a show, and he's being featured in that. So, which is it's really cool to see one of your friends they've known for a good while that's always done good quality work and always trying to improve themselves and just kind of always push their limit of what they're capable of, what they're doing, making new items and new turnings and stuff, and then to see him kind of branch out and then get accepted into the Smithsonian is it's just I'm really happy for him. It's pretty exciting to see that.
Yeah, he's got some good stuff, and we'll put a link to the Smithsonian's website where they're showcasing some of his stuff. But yeah, some of that stuff he's made is just pretty cool stuff.
Yeah, it's very cool.
Well, next up, Woodpeckers has a new wheel marking gauge out with micro adjust, and I got a little peeve to pick with it, Woodpeckers, because basically
It's a tight mark
it's another tight mark knockoff.
with a rectangular head.
Yeah, and I would think, why is Woodpeckers, I don't want to say stealing, but borrowing the design, of the type mark gauge? I mean, it's just like, you got to be kidding me. I mean, he's had that gauge copied so many times, but I mean, Woodpecker's doing it. I mean, Woodpeckers has all their stuff copied by all these Chinese companies. So you think they would show a little respect to other people's designs?
We can't beat them, join them, I guess,
I guess, but
Yeah, but they all do it.
I know.
Yeah.
It was just, I mean, I saw that and I was just like, of all people, I mean, it's ridiculous, but
So, did you
yeah.
do the pre-order? Did you get one?
No, I did not. I will give my money to Glenn Drake. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Can I tell you a little story
Sure.
about? I was out in Canada demonstrating at a big trade show for WWing. And Kevin and I were walking down through the trade show, and they had a big Powermatic booth. We walked by it, and I looked at Kevin, and I said, "Hey, Kevin," I said, "Powermatic's buying your live centers?" He said, "No." I said, "You better look at that one." He couldn't tell the difference. It was a exact knockoff. You can't sue Powermatic because they got too much money.
Yeah.
They tried, and they won, and they were awarded, I don't know, $2,500 or something, right?
Something like that.
You just can't beat them guys. I mean, you can't beat the government, right? I mean,
Yeah. Well, and it's also one of those things, hey, a lot of people come up with some ideas and, like my jigs and stuff, people have copied those. And, it's like, people say, well, you should have do a patent on it or something like that. I go, that's $10,000 at least.
Right. That costs a lot of money. That's like me with the patent.
And then you got to go and sue these people. And,
Yeah.
Right. And so it's one of those things. So it's just not even worth it. But just kind of, to be frank, just kind of pissed me off that Woodpeckers would, still Glenn Drake's design there of the type mark.
It's not like they needed to do it for the money,
Yeah, no. I mean, Lee Valley has a bunch of marking gauges, some with micro adjust. It's a totally different, mechanism than what is on the type mark. Why couldn't they come up with something themselves? But anyway.
But out of all of my views, that type mark is the nicest.
It is.
It is really nice.
Yeah.
Yeah. So anyway, I would recommend spend the extra $10-$20 and check out Type Mark. I think you can get them from Lee Nielsen and, support two nice companies. I guess. Anyway, well, there goes our Woodpecker sponsorship. So anyway.
if they can't take criticism,
exactly,
then, can't take all the praise.
Well, with that, let's thank our patrons. So who do we have to thank this week?
All right. This time around, a big thanks as always to our Patreon supporters. Today, we're giving a big shout out to Colin Anderson. Thank you very much, Colin.
Yes.
If you would like to support the MWA podcast, you can go to patreon.com MWA podcast. And you can select your level of support there. And every dollar helps support the show, serving costs, all that stuff. And we very much appreciate it.
Yes. Thank you so much, Colin. With that, let's move on to 5 questions. So, David, what is your favorite tool? And as always, our limit is 23.
Wow, my favorite tool, probably the last one that I restored it, whenever that may be. No, I guess my favorite tool is no doubt about it is the lathe. I got my first lathe when I was in grammar school. You know, my Barton, WF bands, foot powered wood lathe is by far my favorite tool.
What about power lathes? Did you have a favorite when you were doing the bowl turnings?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Loaded question, right?
Yeah, exactly. I figured I'd ask.
The one-way lathe is definitely my favorite. You know, I'll tell you the story. I had bought a General 260 and put a 3 horsepower motor on it like a year before the one-way came out. And the one-way came out and I demonstrated on it in Greensboro. And I was pissed because I knew I had to come home with one and I had just bought that other lathe. You know, I said, and John Jordan came home with one. And there was, you know, just the greatest thing coming, right?
Mhm.
And and they made me one of their first 10 dealers on the lathes. And I told them, I said, hey guys, you know, I said, I don't want any money for selling these. I'll sell them. And, you know, that's, you know, I make my money wood turning. I don't need to sell the lathes.
Right.
But, you know, I'm not going to endorse anything that I don't like, that I don't think is the best. If there was a better lathe out there, hey, I'd have had it. You know, if I thought there was a better lathe out there made than that, I would have it. Have you ever seen their machine shop?
No.
You know, it's a multi-million-dollar machine shop that goes acres. You know, the lathe business is just a small percentage of what they do. You know, they're just a huge CNC ISO shop. Just I don't know how many people they employ, but it's, you know, probably 50 people, 60 people. I don't know. It's just huge. They've got they've got rotary storage files where they keep parts. And, you know, it's like a rotary bin. It's 3 stories high.
Wow.
Their grinder that they grind the lathe beds on, they can put 4 lathe beds on at a time.
Wow.
Yeah, you know,
That's
it's not a home shop, right?
Yeah.
Anyway, yeah, that's definitely my favorite lathe. And, you know, and like I said, if I ever thought there would be a better one out there, but you know, the worst thing you can tell a wood turner is my lathe is better than your lathe. Because you're going to piss them off, right? Am I right?
Exactly.
My
Yeah.
lathe's better than your lathe. Well, yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
And when you get into some of the big lathes, I mean, they're basically a car. You know, they're 20 grand, 30 grand. Yeah.
Yeah, it's I know we were doing a show somewhere, and this guy come into the booth, and he was all upset because he said, my machinist looked at the banjo, and he said, there's no way that, you know, that's rugged enough. He said, you ought to have a cam operated thing in there. He said, you got this little 5/8 piece of square strop going through it, you know, underneath. I don't know if you've ever looked at one of these.
Yep.
Well, Tim said, really? He said, so you take one screw out and you pull that handle out with the whole assembly, and the banjo will stay right there because it's locked on with a cam, you know? So, you know, the engineering behind it is just so good. I know when I first wanted one, I talked to him before I went to Greensboro, and I said, would you make me one of those with the 1.25" spindle? Because I had just bought all this stuff in my general, right?
Yeah, I know, exactly.
And, you know, I don't think he had sold any lathes at that time. And he thought for a minute and he said, no, no. He said, the M33 3.5, and that's it. He said, it's wrong one good if you don't good. I said, okay. But, you know, after I turned on it, I said, damn, I got to buy all new trucks and stuff.
Yeah, you got to buy chucks, tailstocks, headstocks, all the new stuff.
That's another thing. People say, well, it's got a number 3 tailstock.
Yeah.
Is that a bad thing? I mean, number 3 holds a lot better than the number 2 if you got a big bit in there, right?
Yeah.
You know, if you're say you're boring a hollow form with a 3-inch bit, it's not going to slip, right? Yeah.
Right.
So I mean, metal lathes, they change the Morse taper nose. They go up huge for the reason because bigger holes more, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Guess I went off a little bit too far on that one.
No.
That's why we like the long stories here.
Yeah.
Okay, good.
So, David, who's influenced you the most?
Who has influenced me the most? Probably Dave Ellsworth, Ray Key, John Jordan, most David Ellsworth. I went and took a class off David years ago. I'd been turning forever at that time, but I had a chance. I want to go see Dave Ellsworth. I mean, he was the man,
Mm-hmm.
I come away there, I used to do some hollow forms and stuff, but I come away from his house knowing that I wanted to do bolts. I knew that's what I should be doing. And John Jordan, I love John, great wood turner. I've got several pieces from both of them.
Yeah.
And Ray Key and Richard Raffin, because of their utilitarian, practical approach to wood turning, Ray Key and Raffin, I like them because they were both really good technicians. When I learned wood turning, it was Peter Charles, the Craftsman Wood Turner book. That was about it.
Mm-hmm.
I turned I think I turned 10 years before I ever met another wood turner.
Yeah. Well, that's interesting. So do you have any techniques that you self-taught yourself that other people do or do not use?
Yeah, most of them. Yeah, probably. Yeah, I do.
Mm-hmm.
My the Irish grind, the Liam O'Neill grind, or the Ellsworth grind, whatever you want to call it. I know, like I told you, I wanted to make that cut on that rough turn bowl. I wanted to do that one finish cut, right? And I had Jordan was up to the house spending a few days with me, and he said, "Let me see you turn a bowl." So I stuck a bowl on there, like a 14-inch bowl, and put my curved tool rest on there, and I come around and I held the tool right parallel with the floor. The way I ground it a little bit different, and it was taking a roughing cut and a finish cut at the same time. And when I finished coming around the rim of the bowl, I didn't shut the lathe off. I listened to John for 5 minutes telling me why that wouldn't work. And when I shut the lathe off, Jesus Christ, he said, "How did you do that?" So yeah, I was, and they talk about these bottom feeder gouges and all that stuff. I was using that. I ground my tools like that 25 years ago. But people would always ask me, what angle you grind your tools? And I said, whatever angle I gotta grind them to keep the bevel on the wood. I don't know what angle it is.
Mm-hmm.
If it's not hitting the wood, I'll regrind it because that's where you get all your control is bevel rubbing the wood.
Right.
If your bevel's not rubbing the wood, you haven't got any control.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, and I grind my tools maybe a little different. I approach it with a tool a little different. My attitude's different. A full-time, get it done wood turner. If I don't have what I need, or if it hasn't been made yet, I'll make it. You got to make what you need to do what you got to do.
Mm-hmm.
Necessity is mother of invention.
That's right.
You got to. So every minute I was turning, I was trying to figure out what I could do to do it better, quicker, more easy for myself. And as far as the finishing process, 15-inch bowl I'd sand in 3 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
But I used 5-inch disc back then. Nobody used 5-inch disc. It was, I don't know if you know Bruce Hoover, but I got him making a really nice disc that I used to use. Made them out of billet aluminum with a 3/8 shaft so they don't slip.
Yeah.
And as far as finish, I used Waterlox oil on all of my bowls. I'd put 3 applications of that on and let it set a day between each application. And I would, this great use of vacuum is, you can't spend hours putting finish on. So, you put the Waterlox on, it was quick. You just slop it on, and let it set and rub it off. And when I was done, I would, I'd suck it on with vacuum.
Mm-hmm.
And I would take a beeswax mineral oil paste that I mix up with some for steel wool and hold it on that spinning piece. And it didn't take a half a minute inside and a half minute outside to polish that up to a beautiful, beautiful finish. And I remember once I was doing bowls for Simon Pierce. Look them up, Simon Pierce Glass in Vermont. I was doing bowls for them, and I think I had 100 bowls on the floor in my shop. I had just done. I live out in the country. The guy next door had some chickens. One of them chickens come in, it ran all through my bowls.
Oh, man.
Yeah. Then it went out and it got in one of the shrubs out in front of my garden. My wife had a daycare. And there's kids all running around. The kids all left at 5 o'clock. They were gone. I went out and I blew that damn chicken right out of that shrub. And my neighbor was on his porch next door, a different neighbor.
Yeah.
And I thought he was going to fall off his porch laughing. And that chicken,
Man.
I'm a beast man anyway.
That's funny. All right. So David, our third question is, what is your white whale? So this is the one thing that you have not made, but you always wanted to.
That's really a good question. I don't know. I guess I kind of make whatever I want to make. Whatever, I don't know. I really haven't got anything that I want to make that I haven't made. I'm pretty happy with what I've made, what I've done. I'm sure there'll be something I want to make. I don't know. That's really a hard question for me. I can't really answer that.
Yeah, that's fine. That's fine.
fine.
Good.
About 3
That's a
o'clock in
good
the morning, you'll bolt up in bed. Damn it. I thought of something.
So, David, what's your number one tip you can give for your fellow woodworker?
My number one tip that I can give to my fellow woodworkers is, you got to put the time in. You got to put the time in. And don't be afraid to practice. Let's just say bowl turning or spindle turning for chairs. Every piece that you make doesn't, it doesn't have to come out perfect every time you make it. You've got to learn. Don't be afraid to put in time just practicing. I practice all the time. I've been turning my whole life and I still practice. Everybody can't see this, but this is just a little white oak spindle, dry white oak spindle that I turn, on the foot powered lathe just the other day, because there's so many different things that you can learn every time you step up to it. And like the tools that I use, like the carving tools that I use on this foot powered lathe, I've got skew chisels that are right, and I've got other ones that are left. This has only got a single bevel.
You're right.
Bevel, I can get it sharper, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I've got right ones and I've got left ones. And the reason I do that is because I'm setting on this stool. I need to, and when I'm turning, I am ambidextrous. I turn either right-handed or left-handed equally well, which I think is important. But I guess, the main thing is become competent with the tools that you're using. And the more you do, the better you're going to get.
Right. That makes
Yes, for
complete
sure.
sense.
All right.
Well,
Yeah, our last question you kind of already answered. I think it's, what is your go-to finish? You mentioned water locks.
Yeah.
and tongue oil. Well, what are you using on the chairs?
Water locks.
Water
I'm
locks.
using no paint and
Water lock soap. That makes sense.
Nice.
I've tried shellac and
Is there any particular brand?
water locks.
Water
Just
locks.
water lock? Is there any
Yeah.
that you go with besides?
Yeah. Water lock original is what I use. Water locks original, like in the state of Maine, you can only get it in quarts because of the VOC laws and stuff.
Right. Yeah.
But I get my water locks from, I think it's in Kentucky. The name of the place is the Paint Source. And I put a hardwood floor in the barn. And it's a good deal. I actually traded a rocker and the guy put in a white oak floor for me.
Nice.
And yeah. And I sanded it and finished it. But I called him up. I bought water locks from this guy for years. And I said, hey, I want to do my floor and water locks, but I said, I ain't giving you $50 a quart for water locks. I said, you're gonna have to ship it. market or something here. He said, well, I got good news for you, because he said we have changed. They changed the rules on the VOCs. So if it's for marine use, they can ship the marine finish. And he said all we did was we rebranded the original to marine finish.
Put a new label on it.
Yeah, that's what they did. They put a different label on it. So he shipped me up 4 gallons of that, and I put it on the floor. Boy, it looks really nice.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
No
love
kidding.
that finish.
Nice, nice. Well, with that, David, where can folks find you on the internet?
On the internet. I don't know. I have a hard time finding me on the internet sometimes. Instagram, David.Lancaster.393 with all small letters. And Facebook. I'm on Facebook, and I started a thing on YouTube, but I haven't followed through with it. So that's not really worth looking at.
Well, we can always hope.
Yeah, someday. If you want to come up and take some videos for me, we can get some more stuff on it. Look,
I saw that you had a grandson there turning,
I've got a couple at turn.
Yeah, put a camera in their hand.
Actually, I told you my wife had a daycare. Well, one of them was at the daycare from the time he was an infant, and
Yeah.
I had him turning when he was 5 years old.
Chip off the old block, huh?
I bought him a 1018 when he was probably 8 years old.
Uh-huh.
And right now he's got a 2436 3-horse.
Nice.
And he's a pretty good, he worked with DCE.
Yeah. That's outstanding. That's
Cool.
outstanding.
Yeah.
Well, does he have an Instagram?
No,
Okay. Well, you're gonna have to let us know when he starts posting some stuff.
I will.
With that, David, it has been fantastic having you on the show. And
Well, hey, I had a great time. Thanks.
yeah, it's
For
been
sure.
absolutely fantastic. So thanks so much for coming on the show. And that just about wraps it up for this show. If you haven't already, please subscribe to the show on the podcatcher of your choice. Just search for the Modern Woodworkers Association. And while you're there, please leave us a review. You can follow us on Instagram at MWA_podcast. And if you'd like to support the podcast, go over to patreon.com/MWA podcast. But the best thing you can do is tell a friend. Word of mouth goes a long way in sharing our discussion.